What inspired me to start Oma Wellness is really just the lack of attention there is to women's health and women's health concerns. I think especially as African women, we tend to put our health on the back burner, whether it's because of societal pressures, cultural norms, or just lack of access to the right information. And just creating a space where women can come together, learn from each other, and lean on each other. So Oma Wellness is just starting. So it really started off as Ola Africa, which is something that I started when I was in high school, because I've always been really passionate about women's health and just access to quality healthcare, especially when it comes to menstrual health. So I would say the biggest impact that we've had so far has been like the distribution of menstrual health packages to women in refugee camps in Nigeria. But I think moving forward, we're trying to be more of a community-based organization that brings women together, like wherever we are, we can come together and discuss, learn from each other, and things like that. So that's really the kind of impact I'm hoping to have. I would say gender equality in Nigeria specifically has definitely taken like very, very big strides, like from having women in leadership roles, having an increasing amount of women influencing policy decisions, the sheer amounts of women that are starting businesses and succeeding in those businesses across all sectors in Nigeria is really, really powerful and really inspirational to see. But I think when it comes to women's health, there's still definitely a gap, like a really big gap. You know, women don't have access to quality healthcare, they don't have access to preventative healthcare, they don't have access to education surrounding their health. And I think this all goes back to economic empowerment, because it's really women that have the economic capacity to focus on these things, that are able to make better informed decisions, they're able to, you know, seek medical advice early, they're able to invest in their health. So I would say that even though we've made such big strides, that, you know, equality is not just about, you know, representation. Like, sure, we've had great representation, but equality is also about access and agency. So until women have access to quality healthcare, until they have the agency to, you know, or there's a stigma that's removed from talking about healthcare, then, you know, until then we still have a lot of work to do. The biggest challenge for women, aside from healthcare, is definitely access to capital, human capital as it relates to education, financial capital. You know, those things are really preventing women from succeeding, and until we have those things in place, because those things are really the markers of a society that truly value women. So I think we definitely still have a lot of work to do in terms of those two things. So education, access to economic leverage. I think if I had, you know, access to unlimited funds, I would definitely set up some sort of hub that addresses both health and, you know, the economic challenges that women face. So it would have to be something that encompasses both like preventative health care, but that doesn't just treat illness, but also gives women the ability to be resilient, like in the long term. So whether that's through mentorship, entrepreneurship, training, everything along those lines. So it would definitely have to be something of like a hub that also encompasses sustainability, so that it's something that can be sustained in the long term or in the long run. So I would say the project that I'm working on this year is definitely within Oma Wellness, and it's really just changing the narrative around nutrition and chronic illness, like things like diabetes, heart disease, hypertension. I feel like there's a misconception that these diseases are like Western diseases, or that they don't really occur in our culture. But I think with the rise of highly processed food, sugar, things like and fast food. You know, we're seeing an increasing amount of these illnesses across the entire continent. So I would definitely say the intersection of those two things about how we can, you know, make nutrition and healthy eating, you know, make it into a lifestyle and not a privilege, really. So yeah, just addressing that misunderstanding or misconception. I would definitely say that while corruption and political instability are definitely real issues that need to be addressed, I really stray away from reducing Africa's narrative to one of dysfunction, because I feel like that leads us to, it kind of, you know, shapes our mindset to be not as productive, and that's just not the reality, because in reality, despite corruption, despite political instability, change is happening with or without government support. There's grassroots organizations, there's young entrepreneurs that are, you know, pushing change. Not to talk about the digital landscape and how that's producing more opportunities across the continent. So yeah, I would definitely say that innovation in the continent, in Nigeria, is thriving regardless of government support, and it's being driven by Africans for Africans, and that's the truth. It's really just I would say the idea that like Africa is just one thing. So, you know, there's so much diversity in Africa. There's so much diversity within individual countries. You know, so reducing Africa to one thing, whether negative, you know, anything, is not realistic, and I feel like it does more harm than good. So I would definitely say, you know, addressing issues in a context-specific way. Address issues based on the country. Address issues based on that particular governance. What do I think we will get right? I would say what I hope we'll get right is investing in human capital, like I said. You know, providing access to education, healthcare, economic empowerment, you know, those things are really important, because as much as we talk about infrastructure and technology, those things are also extremely important. But without a thriving society, how can you have a thriving continent? How can we, you know, build anything when the people themselves are being neglected in every way? So I would say definitely investment in human capital across the board is something that I really, really hope we get right in the next 5 years.